you know what? I've had a change of heart. Just now, I've changed my mind. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. It'll be great. Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me again today. I really appreciate it. As always, we've got big things happening in the little garage. The first thing that I want to accomplish today is getting these tires to fit on the back. And just in case you haven't been keeping up, the front is done. The tires fit in the full length of all their travel and everything. So now I just need to get the front fenders put back on here. That'll probably take some trimming on the fenders because they come down pretty far. They're not really made for 42-inch tires. All right, guys, well, I've got the tires on the rear of the FJ and just sitting here at ride height. They look great. No big deal, no problems. They're not touching anything. No problems at all. But now I'm going to take the axle through its range of motion and try to find all the problem spots. And here the rear bumper is at full bump with the axle straight across. You can see no interference here, not even close to anything. Beautiful. Looks fantastic. So this is again with the axle straight, but tucked all the way up as close to the frame as it can be. As I'm considering bump stops, let's take a look at how close the axle is to the frame. I just measured it, and you're looking at about 3 3/4 inches on both sides from the top of the truss to the bottom of the frame. So let's keep that in mind, about 3 3/4 inches with the axle straight across. All right, with the axle at this extreme angle, this is where I start to run into some difficulty. So this tire is sticking up here, and of course it angles in a lot when the axle gets at an angle, of course. So I don't have really any contact here on the fender quite. I mean, it's practically touching the fender, but nothing serious. The real issue is that the tire is contacting the coilover right here, so pretty severely. Now, one option could be possibly to move the bottom coilover mount inward, and that would get it away from the tire, but it wouldn't get it away from the tire enough. And I already moved the coil mounts, the lower coil mounts, out to make clearance up here for the coilover. So I can't move them in, I can't move the bottom in because I already moved them out to clear here. And so I'm gonna have to push the wheel out. And how do you push the wheel out? Well, use wheel spacers. I kind of wanted to avoid using these, but it looks like I'm gonna have to. So these are 2-inch wheel spacers, and I think that will fix the interference problem with the coilover, but it'll probably create more problems with the fender. Let's find out. All right, well, that actually worked out exactly how I thought it would. So you can see the tire is rubbing the fender worse now, but I've got tons of clearance for the coilover. So one problem solved, and now we just need to fix this. Now, somebody asked, why don't you just use a bump stop to keep the tire off the fender? You wouldn't have to bump it very much, so why not just stick a bump stop in here? Well, if you recall, this was at 3 3/4 inches, and now with the axle in this position, we're at about 4.5 inches, So the axle is actually, I just hit my head. So the axle is actually, let's see, 3/4 of an inch further away from the frame now than it was with the axle pushed all the way up and being straight. So if I were to put a bump stop under there and bump it out at 5.5 inches, I would lose, you know, to keep this tire from hitting, I have to put the bump stop a little bit lower than where it actually hits. So if I did 5.5 inches, then I would lose 1.75 inches of bump of when the axle is straight, and I don't think I want to lose 1.75 inches in that direction. So I think I would rather just modify the fender a little bit. So instead of going right to cutting the fender, I think I'm going to try to pound it up a little bit, and make it not look like it's pounded up, but just reshape it a little bit. So we'll see how that goes, and if that doesn't work, then I'll just trim it a little bit. All right, a little dead blow action made that quite a bit better. It's still just barely touching the fender. So with it barely touching the fender, you know what? I've had a change of heart. Just now, I've changed my mind. I'm not gonna cut the fender, and I'm also gonna put a large bump stop down there. So if I bump this with a 5-inch bump stop, it will keep it off the fender. So it might touch the fender, but it's not going to be dragging on it hard. And I've got plenty of up travel on this rear axle. So yeah, I think I'm going to stick a 5-inch bump stop in here, and yeah, I feel pretty good about that. It'll be great. Now, of course, all that is contingent on the other side working out about the same way. And it should, right? So I'll get this tire off of here, put the other one on the other side, and see how that one looks. All right, guys. Well, this is still pretty tight on the fender. But the more I think about it, the more I think that going the bump stop route is going to be the right thing to do. I think 5 inches or so of bump stop is going to be just perfect. Having that 5-inch bump stop will also help with this third link here, which at the 3 3/4 inch mark was in contact with this cross member. So yeah, the more I think about it, the more I love the idea of some bump stops. So some of you have also asked about limiting straps, and yes, I think I will be installing limiting straps. I may not need them for rock crawling, but you know, why not put them on? They're not going to hurt anything, and they can only help the coilovers. I don't want to have to buy any new coilovers anytime soon, so yeah, I think I'll do limiting straps as well. And with that, the back is pretty well squared away, so I'm going to move back up to the front, where I'll be installing these brand new shiny fenders. I ordered these on eBay, and they're supposed to be color matched to the paint code 058 Iceberg, which is the color that the FJ is. They look a little brighter right now. It might be just because they're fresh and clean. Once I get some dust on them, I think they'll blend in pretty well. But they are in significantly better condition than my old beat up fenders. Pretty dented in there, pretty crumpled back there. So I do have, you know, other dents on the FJ, but it'll at least be good to get rid of a few of my dents for now. Alright guys, new fenders on. They bolt on pretty easily. Again, you can see the white on the fender is a little bit brighter than what's on the body, but they still look better than what was on there. The door clears, no problem there. And the passenger side totally clears. So now that I've got these nice new fenders on, it's time to cut them. So I gotta move these tires again. I know I'm gonna have to cut that off. So yeah, here we go. Gonna have to cut this, I'm sure. But we'll try to make it look neat. So I've got the wheel off on the driver's side, and I'm jacking up the passenger side. And it's obvious that this is gonna have to go right here. So I'm just gonna cut that off and keep jacking the tire up. I'm not jacked up all the way yet. So, but I know this has to go. So you can see I have some interference with the fender. Even though I cut this off, it's hitting right here. So I've determined that I'm going to cut off 1.5 inches all the way back to there, and hopefully that'll take care of it. Alright guys, after some messing around and testing different methods of cutting, I finally got this cut down to where it doesn't rub on the tire. So after a little bit of tire wear, all these little nipples won't be hitting the fender anymore. Now you can hear them, but the tire's not hitting, and that's what's important. Here you can see when the tire isn't turned and it's just straight, there's actually a ton of clearance. So I'm pretty happy about that. So I'm going to clean up this edge and touch it up with some paint, and then it'll look pretty much good as new. So this little reciprocating saw says it's for cutting body panels, and it works, but the reciprocation of the blade causes a crazy amount of vibration in what you're cutting, and that's kind of a real pain. Now I tried a cutoff disc. The first time I tried it, it burned a bunch of paint, and that didn't seem good at all. So I went out and I got the slightly more expensive cutting discs that say they're rated for like stainless steel, and that made a huge difference actually. It seems to cut cooler and cut faster, so it didn't damage the paint hardly at all. So I think I'm gonna keep using this cutting disc method with the higher quality discs. So to paint it, I knew I wasn't going to have an exact match on the paint. That's the paint I used. It's going to be great. So I taped this off just so I was painting the very, very edge. And once it dries and I take the tape off, it's gonna look like $1 million. All right, onto the driver's side. I'm gonna cut off exactly what I cut off on the passenger side, and then check it with the tire. Should be good. right, well, I nailed it on my first try. I did exactly what I did on the other side, and totally clears. Wow, does that look good or what? Man, the fenders definitely add a more finished appearance. So I was wondering what to do with these corners on the bumper, and quite a few of you said just cap it off. So that's what I'm gonna do for now. And then if I want to make a change later on, I'll do that. And actually, if you look where this is cut off, actually works pretty well with the lines of the FJ now. So yeah, that kind of worked out. So I've got some 3/16 steel here. I'm going to weld these onto the end and then grind them down to make them round and pretty. There we go, guys. Capped off on the driver's side and the passenger side. So even though this front bumper is powder coated, I'm gonna throw a little paint on these ends. I've never really had a problem throwing paint over powder coat, or at least adjoining powder coat. I've done it on my sliders. It never seems to cause a problem. So it probably won't look perfect, but I'm not gonna repowder coat the entire bumper just for that. All right, who am I kidding? They do look perfect. Absolutely, flawlessly perfect. Or at least not bad. This black spot is not from the paint. This was from rubbing on the bumper from before. Before I wrap this up today, let's take one last walk around. Here's the front, looking good. Everything up here is done now. Bumpers even squared away, fenders are squared away. That's where everything's gonna be. We come to the back. That's where the rear tire is gonna be. That's what it's gonna look like. It's all set up. The rear's all ready to burn in and get finalized. So, and then the front up here. Looking pretty awesome. So if we take a look at the checklist here, we're doing pretty well. I got the front fenders on there today, and then big things left to do: front skid plate, battery relocation. One thing that's not on this list is burning in all the welds and just the final fabrication. Just a little kind of minutia stuff, but here it is, guys. We're almost there. Now, a couple videos back, I did mention an announcement coming, and I'm still working on that, but hey, there's only so much time of the day, and I'll get to that eventually. But thanks for joining me today, and if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do so I can join you every Monday and Thursday with new content, and we'll see you next time, guys.